that we are currently liaising with the Aeronautical Search and Rescue Coordination Center. They've indicated to us that there is a plane missing in the KZN Midlands. They've requested that we assist in terms of the management of the traffic in the area, because there are motorists and their onlookers that are causing distraction.
The investigating directorate against corruption believes the magistrate in the fraud and corruption case of crime intelligence boss Dumsani Khumalo should have never recused himself. Magistrate Vusmusi Mahlangu recused himself, citing allegations made against the judiciary before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry as his reasons. During his testimony before the Madlanga Commission, KwaZulu-Natal police boss Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi claimed the magistrate should have read the charge sheet and known that the matter should never have been enrolled in court. Mkhwanazi did not mention Mahlangu by name. Khumalo and two senior crime intelligence members facing fraud and corruption charges are seeking to have their bail conditions relaxed so they can return to work. State Prosecutor Advocate Peter Serunye informed the Pretoria Regional Court earlier today that they'll approach the High Court to review Mahlangu's decision.
It ought not to have happened the way it did, and that it's not in compliance with Section 22 of the Superior Courts Act, and therefore on those bases we intend to make an application to the High Court to have the decision of Mr. Mahlangu recusing himself from these proceedings reviewed and set aside.
The Cape Peninsula University of Technology says a task team has been created to reach an agreement with students related to concerns about potential adjustments to university fees. The EFF Student Command has threatened to protest at CPUT after raising concerns about the institution's proposed registration fees for tuition next year. Earlier today, a group of EFF Student Command supporters halted shuttle services at CPUT's Cape Town campus for 2 hours before moving to CPUT's Bellville campus, where a memorandum was handed over. Carlo Peterson has more.
CPUT management says a task team is discussing its potential adjustments to university fees as part of an ongoing process with students until an agreement is reached. The formation of the task team follows a meeting with the Student Representative Council this week, where CPUT management presented a proposed financial control plan to curb institutional debt. The proposed plan includes introducing an application fee, increased tuition and residence fees, and the reintroduction of a minimal initial tuition fee payment of R3,500. CPUT spokesperson Lauren Kansley says there are no approved plans to make any adjustments to the financial model of the institution.
Management have transparently communicated to all staff and students twice that any decisions which may be taken regarding changes to financial processes must be agreed to by a multitude of stakeholders, and ultimately our highest decision-making body, the CPUT Council, has final sign-off.
Kansley says these matters are discussed during consultative processes and no final decision has yet been made. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News.
Some Gauteng MECs have raised the alarm over budget cuts that directly impact their ability to work. Today, 4 provincial MECs held a joint media briefing in Johannesburg to give progress reports of their respective departments. Thabiso Goba has the details.
eGov MEC Bonkosi Dlamini says his department has made good strides in the digitization of medical records and the installation of CCTV cameras across the province, particularly in the Johannesburg CBD. However, Dlamini says budget constraints have limited the department's progress in the sector of e-waste, which handles discarded electronic appliances.
The department has a budget cut of close to R1 billion in this current 7th administration, a situation that is currently beyond our control. We will continue engaging Treasury to find mitigating ways to assist the department.
Agriculture MEC Vuyiso Ramokhupa says more needs to be done to support subsistence farmers in the rural parts of Gauteng.
Although we continue to face several funding challenges, we have not allowed those challenges to derail our mission. Through innovation, through partnerships and disciplined spending, we've continued to deliver tangible results.
Tomorrow, the remaining cohorts of MECs will also present their progress reports. Thabiso Goba, Eyewitness News.
And global healthcare group Haleon says it plans to triple its investment into its Cape Town manufacturing facility in a bid to drive the local production of pharmaceutical goods. The world's largest self-care company has announced a 750 million rand boost for the facility over 3 years. Haleon hosted a B20 policy roundtable in Sandton today on ways to build local manufacturing capacity and supply chains to enhance access and affordability of healthcare products. The company's executive have also also called on the public sector to come on board. The Health Department's Deputy Director General, Rampelane Morewani, says there is room for collaboration.
By investing in domestic production of essential medicine and medical products such as vaccines, we are able to reduce dependency and strengthen supply chain resilience and also create job opportunities.
Gold's trading at $4,191.07 an ounce. The rand at 17.33 to the dollar, at 23.21 to the pound, at 20.17 to the euro. Brent crude oil at $61.99 a barrel.
And in your sport, Bafana now turn their attention to December's AFCON following their World Cup qualifying success. Proteas' 10-test win streak ended by Pakistan a 93-run loss in the opening test of the series, and 6 Kings Slam gets served up.
A look at your weather. Clear skies in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 12 degrees and peak at highs of 28. Pretoria is at 17 and 31. Vereeniging at 15, reaching highs of 30 degrees. A partly cloudy start for the mother city. Otherwise, it's clear skies there with strong southeasterly winds at a low of 13 and a high of 21 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. The KwaZulu-Natal Road Traffic Inspectorate has been roped in to manage the flow of traffic along a route in Pietermaritzburg where a light aircraft is believed to have crashed this afternoon.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. EWN Traffic.
Well, some good news. That accident scene in Erasmus Kloof on the N1 southbound before the R21 Flying Saucer interchange has been cleared and traffic should be back to normal shortly. However, there's still slow-moving traffic. That's in the Kloof area on George Storer Road between Tutoy and the Fountain Circle in Midrand. Bumper-to-bumper traffic on Annandale Road between Old Pretoria Road and Mastiff. Calvin, Alex area, we still have roadworks causing heavy delays. Expect about a 20-minute delay on the N3 southbound between the Butlu interchange and Marlborough Drive. Also in the Sunwood Park, Boksburg area, traffic remains sluggish. This is due to roadworks on the N17 eastbound between Rondebold and Carnival City due to ongoing roadworks. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025. Good evening. Welcome to the program. I'm Stephen Grootes, 9 minutes after 7 the time. Obviously, so much going on around electricity pricing at the moment. I mean, I can almost feel your anger when I mention the phrase because it's just become so expensive, having such a big impact on people. And more and more CEOs I speak to, more and more CEOs you hear on the Money Show talking about how much money they're spending, basically getting themselves out of the Eskom grid because it's so expensive. And news today that AfriForum seems to have been able to, and I mean, I think legally and perhaps morally quite correctly, get their way into the settlement between NERSA and Eskom. I don't know what happens next, frankly. We'll speak to two people who I think do, Professor Samson Mampwedi and Matthew Cruz, in the next few minutes. We'll talk about that. Payment systems have changed so much in the last 10 years. I mean, as part of a sort of fintech kind of thing going on, these things are all related to each other, obviously. I'm fascinated to see where it'll end up. And that's one of the questions I'll put to Andy White, the CEO of the Australian Payments Network, in a few moments. Looking forward to that conversation. And where it sort of goes, I mean, does it end with a kind of retinal scan or a fingerprint or something like that, rather than having to carry something on you, but proving you are who you are, that Stephen Grootes is in fact Stephen Grootes, is going to get harder and harder. I'm not going to use the two letters you expect me to use in that era, but you know the point that I'm making. And I think that's really where payment systems are going to be the sort of big issue. We'll talk about how to boost intracontinental trade, how to boost trade in our continent. And then I was intrigued to see a slightly contrarian view. Good to listen to the contrarians from time to time about know your customer legislation. We're talking about what banks and other financial institutions have to do before they actually process payments. That'll be before 7 o'clock. Don't forget as well, from 7:30, an important conversation. Your shapeshifter tonight is the founder, the CEO and co-founder at Everelectric, and dear Magadagela. It's a fascinating service that's actually being rolled out there and how that's working. So looking forward to that conversation. Good to hear from you tonight. 011 883 0702 and 021 446 0567.
The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app
and DSTV channel 856.
Well, Standard Bank releasing that big report into the informal economy, and they say 8 out of 10 sort of township businesses, I think was the phrase they used, are not actually registered with government. And we keep coming back to this question around, why would you not register with government? You wouldn't register with government, firstly, because I think you might not see the point. You get nothing for it. And that's an entirely rational decision, right? The second is, you might just think, well, it's just going to be a cost. I get nothing for it. So what's the point? I think there's also a sense that maybe there's too much regulation. No one wants to be controlled by anybody. I mean, that's just human nature. We all want to do what we want to do. The regulation is meant to make sure that, in fact, you are able to have things like traffic lights and traffic and all of us sharing the same space and people not getting abused and all the rest. I do wonder, and I'm sort of also thinking of that conversation we had with the National Consumer Commission last night about their investigation into e-commerce, despite the fact they've received no complaints, and it's really an investigation, let's be clear, as I see it. This is not them, this is me now. It really seems to be an investigation into Shein and Temu, again, without complaints. So let's run a little experiment. Are there too many regulations? For you, what regulation would you remove? Is there a regulation you would add or improve the enforcement of? Anything to do with the business you're involved in. It doesn't have to be your business, but anything to do with the business you're involved in, or just something you've seen. Maybe you don't like the way vetkoek are cooked on your particular street corner. Whatever it is, let me know. What regulation would you bring in? Which regulation would you enforce more? Which would you scrap? Let's see which we get more of. Voice notes tonight, please, on 072 702 1702.
702. Stephen is on X
at Stephen Grootes.
Another layer of confusion appearing in the disputes about the price you pay for electricity. AfriForum's been able to force Eskom and NERSA to not yet implement what was going to be another significant increase as a result of a previous mistake by NERSA. You may remember NERSA forgot to include a particular figure. Eskom had convinced them to accept an out-of-court settlement. That meant that increase would be added on to what you pay, but would be compounded because of another increase, which is the result of another mistake NERSA had made previously. The two, Eskom and NERSA, had agreed to an out-of-court settlement. AfriForum has essentially forced them to take it back to court. Professor Samson Mampwedi is the head of SANEDI's Energy Secretariat. Samson, good evening. I really do appreciate the time. It seems to me that Eskom and NERSA now won't be able to implement their agreement. Can a judge now stop them from implementing the increase that we were expecting?
Good evening to you and the listeners, Stephen. Yes, so now AfriForum got this court order, which basically precludes Eskom and NERSA from implementing the out-of-court settlement. So their out-of-court settlement was supposed to have been going to the court for ratification, for lack of a better word, in the legal terms. I think it was supposed to have gone in today. Basically, what happens is they settled out of court, and then they have to go to the court, and then the judge must then agree with them on that settlement before they implement it, because this was a matter that was brought before court by Eskom as part of a requesting the judicial review of the NERSA decision. That was in terms of Section 10, subsection 3 of the National Energy Regulator Act of 2004. So the Act allows for Eskom to ask for this judicial review of NERSA decisions on the tariff hikes. However, this one was a little bit tricky because when Eskom approached the court, normally the public should be allowed to join in that particular application, because this is a matter that involves the public, and they can't do any price determination without going through a public participation process. In this case, they agreed outside of the court without the public getting involved. That's why AfriForum managed to stop them from implementing this decision.
I'm sure that means that all sorts of people are going to get involved in this court case. Frankly, I'm quite tempted. But isn't there another problem, Samson, that Eskom needs the money and they were granted the increase? So nurses conceded that it made a mistake. And doesn't that mean that legally they're owed the money? It has to be paid to them at some point.
That is correct. I must say I must quite surprised slightly by this judgment. But it's a matter of technicality in my view. The technicality is that the public needs to have a voice. But if you look at the merits of the case itself, going forward, even if the public participates in the court process, unless the public representatives make a compelling case against both Eskom and NERSA, I don't see this not being implemented. Even if it does not get implemented, it will still come back to haunt us in the next MYPD determination cycle. Because if you look at the aspects that where the errors happen, it's a data inputs errors on depreciation and the regulatory asset base, which is basically things that needs to happen. And like you said, Eskom needs this money.
This is why regulators shouldn't make mistakes, I suppose. There's another issue around all of this. So the way that power prices have escalated, and Samson, you very kindly previously explained the process you're looking at to find a different formula, Sanedi. How does that then feed into this dispute? So Eskom is owed the money from the old system. If there's now a new system, what on earth happens then?
Yeah, so going forward, what we are looking at is two things. One, price stabilization to ensure that the prices don't go above inflation. They remain stable, so we don't have double-digit increases. As you know, Stephen, we've been having these double-digit increases for over a number of years now, and that was mainly because the tariff was not cost-reflective. Now, to deal with the cost-reflective part of the tariff, there are these reforms that are now being introduced by NTCSA, and then over and above that, there is work that the minister has now asked the National Energy Regulator, SANEDI, and other entities to look at the pricing framework to see where we can basically lower the price of electricity. So going forward, we anticipate that the prices might stabilize given all these efforts that are underway, and then it might not go above the inflation, or it might not go above the double digit, which has got dire consequences on the economy and the people of South Africa in general.
Professor Samson Mampwedi, really appreciate the time. Thank you. Head of SANEDI's Energy Secretariat. You're with The Money Show, 19 minutes after 6. Matthew Cruz is listening to that, an energy expert at Empower. Matthew, good evening. There's another question here. People are so angry at high power prices. Many people, where they can, are basically trying to get electricity for free in all sorts of ways. You have this confusion, you have this dispute, you have a regulator that gets its numbers wrong. Doesn't that really send a message that actually the people in charge don't know what they're doing?
Well, yeah, thank you for having me on the show again. And yes, I agree. In terms of this, it doesn't inspire confidence in NERSA, as this error went all the way through all the reviews and was then still present in the final publicized tariff increase. And only afterwards, then they're like, oh, no, it's some junior that entered that data incorrectly. But that's like the purpose for having reviews and having senior managers and executives that oversee and review things. So, no, going forward, it does now cast unfortunately, a question mark over NERSA, who is meant to have quite a significant role going forward in the energy sector of stabilizing electricity prices. If they can't get this right, and the reason that the good Professor Samson indicated there is that we were given for this is that it was a miscalculation of depreciation and then also asset transfer. and the value of assets from the Eskom holdings to the National Transmission Company of South Africa of transmission infrastructure. And now the problem with that is that depreciation is the main reason for the last 10 years that Eskom has challenged NERSA's low price tariff increases in the courts and have won, and then have NERSA's come back and said, oh, sorry, we've done it again incorrectly. We have incorrectly calculated the depreciation. We agree with you, Eskom, because now you're going to shut down the power stations in 40 years instead of in 45 years, then you should get more money back now instead of in the future. And so that problem is the same thing that they've been having to deal with for the last 10 years, but they're still getting it wrong. And so now going forward, I actually see this being like one of the reasons why NERSA is going to be scrapped completely, and it's going to be kind of taken out of making decisions about the price of electricity and then going over to a different format. And we've heard about the South African wholesale electricity markets that's going to be determining the price of electricity going forward. So I actually see this now being one of the things that's going to be why NERSA will lose power going forward and will be restructured to have less power in the new energy sector.
Matthew Cruz, thanks very much indeed. Energy expert at Empower. Looking for the right four-letter word to describe all of this, and mess is the one that comes to mind. 22 minutes after 6.
The Money Show on 702.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
There have been lots of conversations recently about know your customer legislation. In other words, the whole idea of this legislation is to make sure that people like drugs traffickers, for example, are not able to use payment systems, and particularly international payment systems. Well, we'll talk about that in a couple of moments because there's been a very interesting conversation about it that is underway. Joburg's hosting the Payments Association of South Africa conference. And if you look at how our payment systems have changed over the years, so much is going on, both in terms of how you actually pay money and behind the scenes. Look at what's happening in the last 10 years. One of the speakers at the conference is Andy White, the Chief Executive Officer of the Australian Payments Network. Andy, good day to you. I really do appreciate the time. Thank you. How quickly have payment systems changed in your company? How has the experience of paying for something changed in, say, the last 10 years? It's moved very quickly here.
Well, thanks for having me, firstly, Stephen. I think, as you suggest, payments has changed markedly in the last decade or so. I think some of the changes that we've seen in Australia would be very familiar to your audience as well. So we're seeing a lot less cash. Unlike South Africa, we still have use of check, but it is incredibly small now. And we have a new payments platform, which is real-time payments. So we're seeing a lot of payments go through that. As well as still a preponderance of card payments. And I think, interestingly, Australians have tended to be a very early adopter of technology, including payments technology. So things like chip and pin and contactless. And that plus its size means that it tends to be used as a bit of a testing ground for other new payments technology. So we're definitely cognizant of changes that might come over time around things like digital currencies, for example.
I presume real-time payments have all sorts of advantages. It does mean much harder to fix mistakes. Are there lessons you've learned along the way?
There definitely are. I think in terms of the benefits of real-time payments, what sometimes gets lost is the name. Real-time suggests it's all about that, whereas actually some of those more modern payment systems also bring in things like richer data that can be used to automate reconciliations or help with issues like sanction screening and AML, CTF. They also help combat some of the economic crime that you allude to. So as you think about faster payments, you might be thinking about a faster economic crime. Well, with that richer data, you can also help build in some protections there around, for example, confirming who you're paying is actually who you think you're paying. So you build trust in the system and so on. But there definitely have been learnings as we implement systems like that. We have to be very cognizant around the whole broad space of economic crime. So I think we tend to think of cyber separate from scams and fraud, whereas actually we need to think about all of those things and even sharing data. How can that be done in a way that is sharing it privately, for example?
Is there any endpoint? So this innovation, this change has happened very quickly. For the moment, you still need to have something to pay. So you need to have a phone, a watch, a card. let's just put cash to one side for a moment. Do you ever see a day, Andy, could there be an endpoint where it's a, I don't know, retinal scan or a fingerprint or something? Or do you think we're always going to need something physical to prove that we are who we are?
It's a really good question, and it's one we're definitely grappling with, Stephen. I think the future, we tend to now think about having, for example, a device rather than a card, and that device can authenticate who you are in a different way to, for example, you might have done with a pin on your card, using biometrics, etc. I think in the future we definitely see a world where there is no device. You are just who you are, and you might pay with your face, or as you say, your retina. I think the other interesting thing with that is we're already seeing, as we grapple with things like AI, these concepts around agentic commerce, so where I can have an agent that pays for something on my behalf. And how does that work? How do we ensure that there is trust that agent is actually representing me? And so it becomes less about the payment. It's more about the fact that payment is part of a broader digital experience, but one that we still need to have trust in and make sure is secure and resilient.
I mean, a lot of the change that we've seen is about the sort of world agreeing on certain standards, the international payment systems. I can be in Sydney watching the Springboks win again, sorry, Andy, and buying an Americano with my phone, or one day my retina. All of that works. But there is geopolitics in the mix. Are you worried that some countries might be kicked out of international payment networks? That would be the one big threat to all of this progress, is that actually you would have different systems in different places that won't speak to each other. And what happened with Russia obviously is a good example of that.
Yeah, so I think to broaden that point, there is a concern about fragmentation. So if you think about using your card, one of the things that you rely on is you can use your card everywhere. So it's a fully interoperable system, and as you say, it doesn't matter which country you're in, you can still do that. Certainly, as we think about digital currencies, as we think about platform-based payment services, digital wallets, etc., even the growth in real-time payments versus cards, then what we're thinking about there is a more fragmented payments ecosystem. And so that comes with a set of risks in terms of how do we ensure some of the concepts that we've touched on already around trust, security and resilience, but also how do we ensure that it's interoperable so that I can continue to pay, to have certainty in the way that I pay wherever I'm paying. I think geopolitics as well has sort of several dimensions to it. It definitely has the dimension that you described in terms of adding to that fragmentation problem. I also think it makes us think differently about concepts like resilience and even payments modernization. Maybe some of the decisions that we were making around simplifying the payment system with the geopolitical context, maybe we need to think about having more options rather than less. So that fragmentation in some ways can be helpful because it provides choice and it provides inbuilt resilience. So it's a balance here.
Andy White, really appreciate the time. Thank you. Chief Executive Officer of the Australian Payments Network. Good to hear from you and your experience.
The Money Show.
The Markets.
Chris Stewart's Portfolio Manager at 91. Chris, good evening. An amazing day for MTN. No corporate news about them. Was it about Nigeria instead?
Yeah, I think so, Stephen. MTN has a very significant operation in Nigeria. There's a number of South African companies that either have exposure or have had exposure to Nigeria in the past, but none quite of the order of magnitude, proportionally anyway, that MTN has. And with the Nigerian macroeconomic environment improving, ratings upgrades coming through, currency showing some stability and appreciation, FX reserves looking much better, liquidity looking much better, the ability to expatriate profits from the country probably looking a little bit better, and that element of MTN's business that has long been discounted by the market perhaps starting to attract some element of valuation again.
Gold, $4,200 an ounce. Lots of speculation it'll hit 5,000. Is there now just so much value in gold shares that no one wants to buy any? It was quite a muted reaction.
Yeah, it was a little bit today. I mean, we did see them catch a little bit of a bid later on in the day. We saw DRD close up 2% odd. We saw Harmony close up 4% odd. The other two bigger gold stocks pretty much flat on the day. Maybe they'll play catch up again tomorrow, but there's a number of factors that continue to support the gold price. Despite a brief foray below $4,000 an ounce again, that was very brief, and the break back up through that psychological barrier was pretty convincing. So gold continuing to attract lots of attention, and with that, I imagine the gold stocks will continue to attract attention too.
And Richmond up strongly. There were numbers overnight from LVMH.
Yeah, we saw good luxury numbers out of LVMH overnight, pretty much across the board, and particularly showing some signs of life in China, which is an important market for the luxury players, and all of the luxury stocks pretty much reacting in harmony to that positive set of numbers coming out of LVMH last night.
Chris Stewart, thanks so much. Portfolio manager at 91. Just after 6:30, Maki Malapo, good evening. The Western Cape Police Commissioner not so keen on his own numbers.
That's right, Stephen. Western Cape Police Commissioner Thembisile Patekile says they're not entirely confident in the province's crime statistics. The Western Cape crime statistics for the period January to March 2025 showed a slight decrease in several contact crime categories, including murder and attempted murder. Meanwhile, the release of the country's crime statistics, which was scheduled for Friday, has been postponed. Ntutuzelo Nene has more.
While the Western Cape crime statistics between January and March showed steady progress in efforts to reduce crime, there were still areas of grave concern. The province featured in the top 4 provinces with the highest murder rates in the country. Gender-based violence, arson and commercial crimes also showed an increase. Patekile says they are encouraged by the next quarter's numbers.
We're happy we're up so far today with the incidents that have been reported, but we can't reverse what has happened in July and August, specifically in the gang areas.
A new date for the release of crime stats is yet to be confirmed. Ntutuzelo Nene, Eyewitness News.
Shuttle services at CPUT's Cape Town campus have returned to normal after a group of EFF Student Command supporters allegedly brought services to a halt for 2 hours earlier today. The EFF Student Command has threatened to protest at CPUT after raising concerns about the institution's costly registration fees for tuition next year. Carla Peterson has been at the campus.
A driver of one of the shuttles at CPUT's Cape Town campus, who spoke on condition of anonymity, says a group of EFF Student Command supporters prevented shuttles from operating earlier today. He says the students closed the gates of a parking lot where the shuttles wait for passengers and instructed drivers not to operate until they received feedback from CPUT management. The driver says the students closed the gates from around noon to about 2 p.m. when they requested to be taken to CPUT's Bellville campus. EWN is waiting for comment from CPUT on the matter. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News at CPUT in Cape Town.
Still in the Western Cape, the province is preparing 473 exam centres for this year's matric final exams. The province has 77,442 national senior certificate candidates this year. Some will sit for the first of 112 exams on Tuesday, with the final paper set for the 26th of November. Lauren Isaacs has more.
The subject with the largest number of candidates is mathematical literacy, with more than 53,200 candidates. More than 2,000 trained invigilators have been appointed to keep a close eye on proceedings. The marking of scripts will get underway at the beginning of December, with 954,000 scripts to be checked by almost 4,200 markers. The national and provincial pass rates will be announced on Monday, the 12th of January, and candidates will receive their individual results the following day. Lauren Isaacs, Eyewitness News.
And Pakistan and Afghanistan's Taliban government say they've agreed to a temporary ceasefire after fresh border clashes and reported Pakistani airstrikes on Kabul and Kandahar. Both sides claimed the other requested the 48-hour ceasefire, which Pakistan said took effect from 1 p.m. local time today. Earlier, a Taliban spokesperson said 12 civilians had been killed and more than 100 wounded by the Pakistani firing. Both sides claimed the others suffered heavy casualties, but none of the deaths could be independently confirmed. confirmed. Violence has flared since explosions rocked Afghanistan last week, which Kabul blamed on Islamabad, with the Taliban denying claims they are harboring militants targeting Pakistan. A look at your weather. A fine Thursday in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows between 12 and 15 degrees and peak at highs between 28 and 30 degrees. A partly cloudy start for Cape Town. Otherwise, it's a fine day with strong southeasterly winds at a low of 13 and a high of 21 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News. Western Cape Police Commissioner Tembisile Patekile says they're not entirely confident in the province's crime statistics.
EWN Traffic.
In the Alex Calvin area, roadworks causing more than a 20-minute delay heading towards Germiston. That's the N3 southbound between the Battery Interchange and London Road. Still in Marlborough onto the N3. Marlborough Drive still heavily backed up all the way to the M1 in Edenville. Expect some delays travelling towards Bedfordview R24 westbound between Edenville Road and the Gilulis Interchange. In Sunwood Park, roadwork still slowing down traffic heading towards Brakpan. That's the N17 eastbound between Rondebold and Carnival City. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Calling all golf pros. Hollywood Bets invites you to step onto the green. Tee up, take a swing, and enjoy glorious golf action from electrifying competitions and thrilling live tournaments. Get ready to conquer the fairway and chase epic fortunes. Ready to master the odds and experience your crowning moment? Bet now on all the excitement and prepare to make your hole-in-one shot to sensational success. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008.
One degree defines you as a master of business, the MBA. The life-changing Gibbs MBA empowers you to lead an organization or start your own business within the dynamic African context. Choose from 90 electives and 8 focus areas: general management, entrepreneurship, consulting, manufacturing, digital, humane leadership, healthcare, and climate leadership. For our next information session, go to gibbs.co.za/MBA. Gibbs is a Triple Crown internationally accredited business school in Ilovo, Sandton.
WhatsApp Stephen
on 072
702
1702.
Plenty of conversations. You heard about the Australian experience of payment systems, what's changing, and that's partly because of the International Payments Conference. It starts, in fact, tomorrow in Joburg. We've also been talking about electricity prices, but I started the show by asking you if you would add regulations for business, if there's one you would want properly enforced, or, and this is really what I'm interested in, if there's some that you would remove. Voice notes tonight on 072 702 1702.
Good evening, Stephen. In 2023, towards the end of the year, I got retrenched. So I decided to start a business, took my package and put it in a microloans business. Took me 8 months to register the business and start serving my first client. In that 8 months, I spent over 24,000 rand to comply with regulations, register with this, do that, do this. Now, I look at the people that are around me doing the same business but unregistered. They're operating as sharks, loan sharks. They have maybe 5 times their loan books, the loan book that I have, and they're unregistered. They get to charge 50% or more, while I charge between 3 and 6%. Hector and Midrain.
Sure, Hector, that's an incredible story. And the amount of money, the amount of time it takes just to be registered. I mean, things should be easy. And I can't help but feel that for some reason, we make them hard. Your experiences, please, on 072 702 1702. 20 minutes to 7.
EWN Sport.
Bafana made things hard too, didn't they, Anthony Tusheda, until the very end?
They did indeed. Good evening, Stephen. Yeah, they did make it hard, but yeah, thankfully Bafana have booked their spots at the FIFA World Cup. And FIFA President Gianni Infantino sent a message of congratulations to the side following their qualification. In the message posted to social media, he declared the South Africans will be playing at least 3 of the 104 matches set to be hosted by the USA, Mexico, and Canada.
Congratulations, Bafana. You are coming back to the global stage again at the FIFA World Cup for the 4th time after the last appearance on home soil. We can't wait to see you at the tournament. Congratulations, South Africa. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Switching to cricket now, with the Proteas' 10-test winning run came to an end as they lost the first test against Pakistan by 93 runs. Having resumed day 4 on 51 for 2, they quickly lost Tony de Zorzi and Tristan Stubbs, and then the favourable home conditions became even more evident after lunch as the South Africans went from 128 for 4 in their second innings to all out for 183. Yes, captain Aiden Markram.
We had a good winning streak going and we lost a game of cricket, and that's how the game of cricket and the world of sport works. Can't win everything. We had plans, we gave it our absolute all, and we were on the wrong side of it. So that can happen, and you have to make peace with that. Let bygones be bygones, as they say.
No results at the Women's Cricket World Cup clash between England and Pakistan. While in rugby, English fly half George Ford revealed he's turned down a big money approach from breakaway league R360 to extend his 102 cap career with the national team. England's rugby union were one of the 8 unions, including South Africa's rugby, which informed players if they joined the startup league, they'd not be considered for test selection. Meanwhile, Australian Rugby League's governing body says players who want to join R360 will be banned for up to 10 years. R360 is planned to launch in October 2026 with 8 men's teams and 4 women's teams playing a series of events across the globe, with it set to offer hefty contracts. And in tennis, the Six Kings Slam is getting started with quarterfinals today. Taylor Fritz up against Alexander Zverev, Stefanos Tsitsipas meeting defending champ Yannick Sinner. Carlos Alcaraz and Novak Djokovic will only start their tournaments tomorrow after receiving first-round buys. The winner of the exhibition is set to take home $6 million in participation and prize money. Anthony Tusheda, Eyewitness News Sport.
We're gonna make insurance great again. We're gonna build a wall around high premiums. A big wall. The best wall. And guess what? You're not paying for it. We're gonna grab poor service by the policy. It's gonna be tremendous. Believe me.
This message has absolutely nothing to do with the US government. It's paid for by the King of Insurance, who's making insurance great again. Get a quote now. It'll be the best decision, people are saying, ever. King Price is a licensed FSP. No fake news, just lacquer insurance.
Your office is more than just a place to work. It's a reflection of your success. At Desk and Chair, we help you elevate your workspace with locally manufactured desks and a wide range of chairs to suit your style and budget. Our expert consultants are with you every step of the way, from planning to delivery and assembly. Visit our showroom in Midrand or shop online at deskandchair.co.za. Desk and Chair. Think, feel, work better.
Small businesses are anything but small. They're the backbone of our communities, the dreamers, the doers, the ones who keep Mzansi moving forward. That's why 702 and Capitec Business Banking are putting them in the spotlight. Every Thursday between 6 and 8 p.m. catch Small Business Focus with Capitec, where we showcase the hustle, heart, and the secrets to thriving in today's economy. Your vision matters, and with Capitec, you're never building it alone. Small Business Focus with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Thursdays between 6 and 8 p.m. on 702. Capitec Bank is an authorized FSP 46669.
702. Stephen is on the Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
011 883 0702 021 446 0567. That's the number to dial. I received an SMS today from Satrix. I'm sure, like many people, I have a small Satrix account, which is all part of investment. Warren Ingram would be very pleased. And it offered to rather communicate with me on WhatsApp and promised that I would be able to essentially access all the information I ever needed on WhatsApp. And that tied with a story I saw or I think it was Business Live, talking about how WhatsApp's becoming more of a business channel. And it absolutely is. And kind of all of my communication now becomes around WhatsApp for various reasons. It's cheaper. I kind of trust it. I feel it's secure, although I watch all of these SAPS inquiries and I wonder how secure can it possibly be. But anyway, a story for another day, I suspect. How do you feel about conducting business on WhatsApp, though? Because I do feel that SMSs are always boring business and advertising. It's for someone else. WhatsApp is for me. Do you know what I mean? Like when I open WhatsApp, it's a message for me. It'll be a group that I've chosen to be on or something. Maybe my street WhatsApp group, because I'm quite fond of the people on it, so it's fine. So if I now turn my WhatsApp sort of corporate, won't it just be like SMSs? And is that a thing? Am I overthinking it? Your views, please. 072 702 1702 on WhatsApp.
The Money Show on 702.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
So many people saying over the last few months the way around American tariffs is to have more trade within Africa. And on one level, it's obvious. But actually, more intra-African trade is not necessarily that easy. Reggie Mlangeni is the head of global market sales and structuring at ABSA CIB. Reggie, good evening. You've been looking at this. You suggest there's several big issues our continent needs to tackle first, and I'm afraid I gave a wry smile when I realized the first was our old friend's electricity.
Good evening, Stephen. Thank you very much for having me on your show, and good evening to your listeners. Power is the cornerstone through which any economy can look to quite literally power its growth. So yes, electricity is paramount to driving any form of economic growth.
The other is water, and that's pretty obvious. And yet that's also a major problem in many places. I mean, from Joburg to many other places around our continent.
That's absolutely correct. And I think the biggest challenge is that water needs to be treated as a core economic infrastructure than the current discourse, which sees it more as a social service. If you can imagine a world where there is stable, clean, reliable water supply, there's no disruption as a result of health issues, which disrupts productivity for working age people or disrupts the ability to attend school for school-going people. So water is absolutely a key cog in the insurance that you deliver strong economic growth and is not just a social service.
All of these things. So, I mean, it's easy to say, and I mean, we've had people suggesting, and I think they're very serious people. I think it's a serious suggestion that, you know, every South African government policy should be looked at as to how does this grow the economy or how does it help small business. And the moment you do that, you end up in the middle of a big political fight. And this takes us to governance. And I'm talking about governance now across our continent. And we've actually seen, I mean, the US is a good example of what happens when governance goes wrong. People don't trust the government. The dollar loses 10% within the year. And don't so many of our issues in the end really come back to kind of that one issue around governance?
As ABSA CIB, Stephen, we believe that governance forms the guardrails that economic operators then transact within. So certainly, if the governance is weak or is opaque or unclear, it becomes a hindrance towards driving the right channels for delivering economic growth. But governance in and of itself is not the only hurdle, and it should be seen as part of the broader value or economic value chain that needs to be set in place for there to be effective growth.
We see, obviously, different things happening in different parts of our continent. I mean, across the Sahel, unfortunately, there have been a series of coups. The society's under extreme stress for various reasons. In other parts of the continent, we see really improved governance. We see not so much a real effort, but just things coming together on the governance side, and you see the real improvement as a result.
Absolutely. In our space, we rely a lot on documentation standards that govern our transactions that are established along international best practice and international best principles. And so when we tend to transact in the product set that we offer our clients, we tend to adopt the principles that would be applicable across multiple jurisdictions so that we can offer our clients solutions that are applicable and relevant in the markets within which they are looking to drive their businesses.
Reggie Lamgeni, thanks very much indeed. Really appreciate it. Head of Global Market Sales and Structuring at ABSA CIB. 9 minutes now to 7 o'clock.
Brush, stroke, paint, color, protect, and admire. From roof paint to exterior textures and interior silk, Warrior Paints has it all. The product range and stylish colors are amazing. And what's more, Warrior Paints has crushed prices for incredible savings. Enjoy that good old-fashioned personal service you deserve. For price, quality, variety, and service, Warrior Paints is street ahead. Warrior Paints, affordable, lasting, luxury.
Change is an unannounced visitor. It can derail you or delight you. It's pushy, inescapable, intriguing. Change is motivating. Change is action. Change has places for you to be. Change is opportunity. We always have our door open to it. For over 3 decades, we've been committed to seeking out the best investment opportunities for you, wherever they may be. 91. Investing for a world of change. 91 is an authorized FSP.
The Wits School of Governance develops leaders and innovators who reimagine governance, strengthen institutions, and drive inclusive growth across Africa. Your journey to impact starts there, from postgraduate diplomas to masters, PhD programs, and executive education tailored for today's wicked problems. They equip change makers in government, civil society, and the private sector with the tools to lead boldly and with purpose. Governance matters. Visit wsg.ac.za and apply today.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
Well, one of the great efforts of government over the last few years has been to try and get us off the Financial Action Task Team grey list. We seem to not have all the controls that we should to stop money laundering and to stop the global financial system from being used by criminals and drugs traffickers. And from what we understand and what we know, our government has done quite well at that. But there are questions, and in fact, some people who believe the entire system we have in our country and internationally is placing too much of a burden on financial institutions and on individuals. The point is that this comes at a cost. One of them is Brian Benfield, a retired professor of economics at Wits and a senior associate at the Free Market Foundation. Brian, good evening. I really do appreciate the time. The whole idea of these controls, as I understand it, was basically to know where money was going, to basically prevent crime, to stop money crossing borders, to stop drugs trafficking, that kind of thing. Why do you believe they've been too onerous?
Well, Stephen, good evening. The original purpose that was given to us by the Financial Action Task Force in the late 80s was, in fact, to prevent money laundering, fundamentally to stop drug traffickers. That was the only reason given. Subsequently, there's been mission creep. After the Twin Towers, of course, they added the financing of terrorism. Subsequent to the international financial crisis, it was to maintain the integrity of the financial system, the global financial system. When we really know that initially it was introduced to catch wealthy Americans and to find out how, initially, to work out how, they were managing to get their money into favorable tax jurisdictions. That's where it started. Of course, there's been a lot of creep, and what we find now in South Africa is individuals like you and me and just about everybody who has a bank account is required on a regular basis to produce documents that they regularly produced before. The ID documents, as you know, proof of residence, as you know, more latterly, proof of income or source of income. And it's become a tick box exercise. The banks, having been fined for not complying properly, and the fines were heavy, millions of rands, have now computerized it, as you might have noticed, that you get a computer notification from banks or insurance companies or even legal firms who are all required to comply, along with many other companies, of course, insurance brokers and the like. They have computerized the whole process now, because in order to prove that they have complied, that they've asked you the question and they've done it timelessly and often enough, and to avoid the fines, they've spent millions, billions in fact. So the costs have been enormous just on the companies. The cost on individuals, of course, I mean, you will know this yourself, Stephen, what it costs you to run around to get the documents needed and as often as they do. And some people simply can't provide the documents, and they have a lot of difficulty. And unfortunately, there is very little evidence of success. The poor old chaps at the Financial Intelligence Center, the FIC, they have to really battle to get their cases forwarded. You know, they don't prosecute their own cases. What they do is what happens is the bank refers a suspicious transaction to them, which has absolutely nothing to do with whether you've provided an ID or not, or your proof of residence. They will forward a suspicious transaction to the FIC. The FIC will then look at it and say, well, yes, no, this doesn't really require or does require further investigation, and it gets referred to the investigators, who then refer it to the National Prosecuting Authority, who then decide whether or not to prosecute. So the FIC chaps have quite a job, quite honestly. So we can't lay the fault purely at their feet of not getting prosecutions done or convictions.
So I understand everything that you say, but isn't it partly because of this legislation that we know, for example, or the Zondo Commission was able to calculate that the Guptas were able to steal, 49,157,323,233 rand and, dare I say, 68 cents from us? I mean, isn't that quite useful?
Well, can I tell you that despite the existence of FICA, they weren't stopped. And I mean, it just tells you that it's not working.
So that's true, but if they were ever brought back to South Africa, this would surely be the basis of the prosecution.
Well, perhaps, Stephen, but the point of I had this article published a couple of days ago in Business Day, in which I said the cost of this thing is massive and the results are minimal. And you are not getting anything like, I mean, just one small example. From the most recent report of the FIC, the 24-25 year-end report, they claimed to have saved 144 million rand. They ought to stop 144 million rand of criminal transactions, where their own budget is 400 million rand.
Okay. So I understand that argument, but I suppose what I would argue if I were arguing for them is that it would be much worse without this legislation. And surely that must, I mean, I accept it's not working perfectly, but isn't that true? It must be true it would be much worse without it.
Yeah, it's not working at all, quite honestly, Stephen. It's not working at all. And the United Nations have said so. The level of money laundering that's going on across the globe today is the same as it was when FICA was introduced in the early 2001. So it's not working at all. And I mean, simply getting a proof of your address and your ID is not going to stop the clever guys who are way ahead. They're way ahead. The guys who are the true criminals, who are being corralled along with the rest of the world, are getting away with it because they know exactly how to work the system.
Well, they're using stable coins, I presume, anyway. They're using bitcoins.
There are many ways to do it, I guess. But the point is, it's very expensive. Now, the point is, South Africa can't get out of this. We are in this net together with just about every other country in the world. Because if we do try to get out of it, they start punishing us by putting us on things like a grey list, which makes life very difficult for everybody. And then, of course, you have to be part of the international settlements system. And in order to be there, you have to comply. So we can't get out of it on our own. It would have to be a joint effort together with many other countries, pointing out to the Financial Action Task Force that this thing simply isn't working. And it's costing us vast sums of money, really vast sums.
Professor, thank you so much. Professor Brian Benfield is a retired professor of economics at WITS, a senior associate at the Free Market Foundation, just after 7 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Mikey Malapo. A multidisciplinary search effort is continuing in KwaZulu-Natal for a pilot and any other passengers after a light aircraft crashed this afternoon near Pietermaritzburg. Earlier, emergency teams complained that inclement weather conditions are hindering their operation. Communication with the aircraft was lost on Nottingham between Moya River and Pietermaritzburg this afternoon. And while details remain sketchy, the Provincial Road Traffic Inspectorate has been roped in to manage the flow of traffic along the route where the aircraft is believed to have crashed. It's unclear how many people were on board. KwaZulu-Natal Transport Department spokesperson Ndabezin Tlesibia.
We can indicate that we are currently liaising with the Aeronautical Search and Rescue Coordination Center. They've indicated to us that there is a plane missing in the KZN Midland. They've requested that we assist in terms of the management of the traffic in the area because there are motorists and the onlookers that are causing distraction.
Education Quality Assurance Body Umalusi has approved and verified the registration process for this year's matric examinations and those at TVET colleges and other higher learning institutions. The approval, however, does not include N3 engineering studies, which are yet to be verified by the Higher Education Department. The body briefed the media earlier today on its state of readiness ahead of the exam period. It's also assured that students who qualify for special support will be catered for in line with official rules. Thando Luhlengcobo has more.
More than 1 million candidates are expected to sit for the upcoming examinations at about 9,400 examination centres across the 4 assessment bodies. For the National Senior Certificate exams, the Basic Education Department has established 6,955 exam centres. Independent examination boards will conduct exams at 263 centres, and the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute has set up 83, bringing the total to at least 7,000 NSC exam centres nationwide. Umalusi Senior Manager Mary Antoinette Dliwayo.
The NCV Level 4, assessed by the DHET has established 249 examination centers for this examination.
She says these preparations reflect Umalusi's confidence on the system in place to ensure a credible and fair examination period for all candidates. Thando Luhlengcobo, Eyewitness News.
A parliamentary inquiry into malfeasance at the Road Accident Fund has questioned contradictory evidence about direct claims without the use of a lawyer. Last week, RAF officials said they were encouraging claimants whose cases are unresolved to come forward to be helped directly and to clear the backlog. But the RAF's communications head, Macintosh Palela, has today told the inquiry he was expressly told that claimants should not be encouraged to lodge a claim without a lawyer. Palela is one of 2 communication and marketing officials who have been appearing before Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts. Lindsay Dentlinger has more details.
In light of the turmoil at the Road Accident Fund, communications head Macintosh Palela says he does not believe media campaigns and messages about the fund and road safety can be considered false advertising.
Our advertising is not based on our values. We are basing our work on trying to empower people to how to reach us, how to claim.
Committee Chairperson Zongezo Zibi queried previous evidence on the payment of direct claims, but Palela says this was not part of the fund's public messaging.
Ever since I came, it was made abundantly clear to me that legislation does not, as we sit here and now, allow that. As I understand it, it was a pilot.
Palela revealed that only 3% of claims come directly from individuals, a figure officials who appeared before the committee last week were vague about. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
Deputy National Police Commissioner Tebello Mosekedi says more police officers from other provinces have been deployed to the Western Cape to reinforce the teams currently on the ground. This as violent crimes continue to plague several areas, especially in Cape Town. Last night, 3 men were shot and killed in an alleged extortion-related attack in the Hout Bay community of Imizamo Yetu. The bodies were found in a car in Holomisa Square shortly before midnight. Speaking at the launch of the province's festive season safety campaign today, Mosekedi says money has been made available to deploy more resources to the Cape.
Minister met with the JCPS ministers that are responsible for the funding to look at additional funding. The Treasury was on board to look at additional funding, and we have communicated that back into the province that the PC can call up other resources within the province, and as national as well, we do have the teams that we have deployed here.
And President Cyril Ramaphosa has extended his condolences to the people of Kenya following the passing of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Odinga died this morning at the age of 80 in India, where he was receiving medical treatment. He had served as Kenya's Prime Minister from 2008 to 2013. Ramaphosa says his thoughts and prayers are with Odinga's family, friends and associates. His spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya.
The nation of Kenya and our continent have lost a patriotic and a selfless leader whom President Ramaphosa knew and worked with as a friend and a brother. Raila Odinga was committed to the development of his own nation, as well as its prosperity and the silencing of the guns on our continent.
Gold's trading at $4,197.93 an ounce. The rand's at 17.35 to the dollar, at 23.22 to the pound, at 20.19 to the euro. Brent crude oil at $61.85 a barrel.
Well, at this stage, if you're traveling through Devlin heading towards El Dorado Park, there's still slow-moving traffic due to roadworks. This is on the Golden Highway between the N1 and Union Avenue. Look out for those faulty traffic lights in Sunning Hill at Witkoppen and Rivonia Road, as well as in Rand Park Ridge at Bears Noti and the N1.
Look at your weather. Clear skies in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 12 degrees and peak at highs of 28. Pretoria is at 17 and 31. Vereeniging at 15, reaching highs of 30 degrees. A partly cloudy start for Cape Town. Otherwise, it's clear skies with strong southeasterly winds tomorrow at a low of 13 and a high of 21 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. A multidisciplinary search effort is continuing in KwaZulu-Natal for a pilot and any other passengers after a light aircraft crashed this afternoon near Pietermaritzburg.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, proud sponsor of the Absa Africa Financial Markets Index 2025. 8 minutes now after 7 the time. Just sort of reflecting a little bit on that conversation with Professor Brian Benfield, suggesting he says that the regulation around know your customer, around the way that payments work, maybe needs to sort of be rethought. I think he's right that to try and get out of the Financial Action Task Force now would be very, very difficult or possibly impossible. You'll need a lot of countries to do it with you. It does sort of fit in a little bit to the theme of the last day or so. It wasn't deliberate, I must just tell you, but we were talking about regulation in businesses a little earlier. We had a sort of WhatsApp voice note talking about how difficult it was to register a small loan business. And I think sometimes, and this is something that so many people have made the same point, you get a government policy that is not necessarily thought through. It's not costed. There's no evidence. There's no inquiry into what the actual consequences will be. It's just a kind of, we're going to do this. And then when it doesn't work or when the economy slows down, there's a kind of, well, why did this happen? Well, this is why it happened. I do wonder sometimes if maybe we need to think about it all again. We'll speak to Sipiwe Moyo, the organizational behavior specialist, about year-end targets. Some suggestions, in fact, that it put too much pressure on employees. Wendy Noli, your consumer ninja, she's looking at hustling. How many people are actually doing everything they can to try and make some money And that really is the kind of story of the moment. And then really looking forward to your shapeshifter this week, India Magadagela, the CEO and co-founder at Everelectric, ended up starting a company, in fact, with people she met at university while studying. It's an extraordinary story. So looking forward to that. Good to hear from you on 011 883 0702 021 446 0567 and your voice notes tonight, please, on 072 702 1702.
The Money Show.
Business Unusual.
There are always two signs that you know we're getting closer to the end of the year. The first is that everyone starts to ask you, what are you doing in December? Are you going home? Are you going on holiday? The other is that people start to talk about meeting their targets for the year. Sapiro Moyo is the organizational behavior specialist. Sapiro, good evening. This can be quite a demanding time of year in the workplace. How should bosses be managing it? I mean, there's a temptation, I think, to say you must meet this target. Come on, let's see what we can do by December the 16th.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. It's such an interesting time. I think it's one of those times where both deadlines, budgets, and I guess just finishing strong is the message that leaders wants to say. And I think pushing hard is okay because we really do want to finish strong. But I think for me, there's an understanding that in organizational behavior, we love this term and model called the job demands resources model. And it's very, very simple to understand that every job has two sides. So you have demands on the one hand, and that's what you've just spoken about. It's what the job takes from you. So there's deadlines, time pressures, there's targets, and there's some, I guess, emotional labor associated with the job, right? But on the other hand, then there's the resources, what the job gives to you, support, great leadership, recognition, recovery time, and whatever capacities that it can infuse in you. And I guess one of the ways we want to finish the year is just to get that balance right between the demands and the resources. So you cannot shout people to perform. All you can do is to help somehow increase their resources in order to cope with these demands.
I mean, I think we all have that sense. So, I mean, I've certainly felt it. There are weeks where I felt, gosh, I've given this company a huge amount of myself. And I felt there's some weeks when, gosh, I don't know if I've been pulling my weight. It's been going the other way. And I've been getting quite a lot from the company.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the idea there is that, you know, when demands outweigh the resources for too long, that's where we see burnout, anxiety, and disengagement, right? But a great company is one where the scale sometimes, or the pendulum swings to the other hand, where you feel like, oh my goodness, the company has done so much for me. I really want to go that extra mile. I want to give as well. And I think it's not always going to be balanced. There are some days where you feel like you are getting more than what you are giving. And most days it feels like no matter how much you give, it's just not appreciated. And also, people keep just sending us on resilience training, and there's so much resilience training you can attend, and the idea there is right, because what resilience training does, it's increasing the capacity and the resources, but you can't only look at that. So there has to be looking around the demand as well, and making sure that if one colleague seems to be burnout, you can rotate the work and ask somebody else to fill in. And when you've created a great race in the office, many people are always able to sit in for somebody, stand in for somebody while they recover. But what is really important is that there has to be that admission that recovery time is part of performance. It's not this thing that disturbs performance, but it's really part of peak performance.
I mean, it's something that good sports teams do too, is you kind of know you're going to play this game, not that game, because you'll be resting. I know people and managers will put targets to people. They'll say to a team, look, by the 15th of December, let's do this, because they want to motivate them. And I mean, targets obviously work. I mean, I think they must work. The question is, when is the target too much of a burden, too crushing?
Yeah, Stephen. So that tension around when is the target stretching, and so many people on this high performance world that we live in now, they just keep pushing the targets, and I think that's fine. There's a time when a target is really inspiring, but there are times when it's also overwhelming. And one of the techniques there that we need to do is always just to break this down into small, palatable things that we can literally do today, next week, next month, and so on. Then it doesn't feel as overwhelming as it does. So target is still good, but you can break it down and not rush it only towards the end of the year. So that people, it feels manageable, it feels palatable. But the other technique is to then celebrate milestones towards the target. One of the things that really makes people tired is if you have this stretch target, as we call it, but you wait until the finish before you celebrate. And that doesn't help us. It doesn't inject that hope. It doesn't inject that personal resources that excite people and get people going to know that, oh, okay, we know we are going there. We know that's the end, but at least if we've reached 25%, there has to be, people have these symbolic bells in the office to say we're halfway mark, and all those things help people on the resources side, that even though the demand has not changed, but we are strategic, we are very helpful, and we think carefully what we can do to help people with those resources at the end of the day.
I can imagine a boss under pressure themselves, incidentally, thinking, look, I can actually push this team as hard as I want because in December they go on holiday. What's the problem with that?
The only problem with that, I think, is when you do that, you are going to unfortunately get a reduced mental capacity, right? So when we are rushed, when we are scared, we don't actually give you that discretionary effort to go the extra mile. So we give you the most, what we can actually give. So one of the things we try and do, Stephen, is that we really want the same things. So we want people to reach the target. We want people to finish strong. We want the performance. It's not as if it's some kumbaya place like home where we just hug and cuddle. What we are interested in, though, is the how. And sometimes all you need is very clever things like a strategic recovery, a day off on days where there is no peak, a normal Friday where you say maybe no meetings Friday, so that people can then focus on the deep work and they can focus on the reset and they can focus on the recovery. So it's not always about changing targets. It's just about understanding that you are working with a human being with limited capacity, with limited resources, and the organization has to have an interest on increasing the resources side, because at the end of the day, amplifying those resources is great for the organization as well.
Thank you very much indeed, Sipiwe Moyo, the organizational behavioral specialist. So much going on, of course, with this issue. And how far do you push people? When do you pull back? And how do you want them to be on the sort of first day of holiday? 17 minutes after 7.
My guy, tell me how date night was.
Bro, I'm telling you, my arrival was too clean. That sporty exterior, the 1.5 turbo engine, just turns heads.
But what about date night?
Yeah, it was chilled. But the Jolly on Pro, it's on another level, bro.
Sometimes the drive is the best part. The Haval Jolly on Pro from only $4,299 per month. Visit gwm.co.za for T's and C's. GWM. Go with more. Brought to you by GWM Finance, a division of West Bank, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
Spar brings you super savings. Get 200-gram Baker's Blue Label Mori biscuits assorted. Buy any two for 30 Rand. Save 14 Rand with Spar Rewards. Or 700-gram Spar pre-packed cheese assorted for 99.99. Save 33 Rand with Spar Rewards. Price is valid 8 to 20 October 2025. While stocks last. T's and C's apply.
It is said that listening to Mozart could boost intelligence. So we at R&B bought this extended radio spot to give you 30 seconds of Mozart just to get some thinking done. That was nice, huh? just some time to think. Well, that is precisely what we do at RMB. Invest in the time to think of smarter solutions for our clients. RMB, Solutionists Love Company. RMB is a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
The Money Show.
Consumer Ninja.
All right, Wendy Nola with you in just a moment. In fact, with us now. Wendy Nola, your Consumer Ninja, good evening. The financial website Just Money, they've been looking at people's relationship with money. They sampled quite a big sample. What have they actually found? I mean, how difficult is, I suppose, the search for money, you could call it?
Yeah, Stephen, they looked at a whole lot of things, a whole of our financial, the way we earn, spend, save, insure, and all the emotions that go with it. So, yeah, as you say, quite a big sample, 5,500 people surveyed just last month, and they've shared with journalists this morning. So I thought it would be quite interesting to share more widely some of the biggest takeouts. So some of them won't be that surprising, others maybe a bit. So yeah, money's tight. A lot of people have side hustles. 36% of those respondents, which is pretty high, say they have a side hustle. So people are working hard, spending a lot of hours trying to, pay the bills.
And people are doing all sorts of things, right? I mean, they're trading things online, they're doing food, they're doing beverages. I'm sure beauty must be a big segment too.
It is in there. The number one thing is trading items online. And yeah, I get a lot of complaints from that sector, people that don't understand the law and the right of, a cooling off period of a week and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's the biggest thing people are doing. And then, as you say, beauty, hair, selling food and beverages, trading and selling things other than online in the old-fashioned physical way, using their vehicles to provide transport services, and then renting out rooms on their property for those that own property. So yeah, just hustling, whatever it takes to get that money coming in. Because 61% find every single month financially difficult. That is so way more than half. 43% supporting 4 or more people with their income, and those are the ones that are feeling the pinch the most, understandably unable to save, really having to stretch their money. And the biggest burden, financial burden, is in the 35 to 44 year age group. And I've seen this come out with, when debt busters share their information, it's always that group that is really being squeezed. Only 12%, sadly, feeling confident with their income. Almost 40% feeling really worried.
Sure.
So it's and women more stressed than men. Women listening will be saying yes, of course. Women are less confident about their finances and quite a bit more worried than men.
There's another question I think they ask, which is, what would you do if someone gave you 1,000 rand? The answer to that must be really revealing.
Yeah, what would you do? What would be your first thought? 1,000 rand you didn't think you were going to have. Suddenly it's in your hand. What would you want to do with it?
I don't know, but I mean, I don't even know if it'll buy a restaurant meal anymore because they've become so expensive.
Yeah. I probably would have said put it towards a pair of shoes or something, but 75% of the women respondents and 67% of the men said they'd buy groceries, which really tells us a lot about people's struggle to meet their basic needs. It's very sobering that for those of us who think, oh yeah, I'm going to do this and that. We are thinking, oh well, now I can pay for groceries. But 75% of women and 67% of men saying, yeah, that's what I'll do with 1,000 rand. 78% of the lowest income band would use the money for groceries, compared with 54%, still just over half of the highest income band. So yeah, very sobering. People are chasing specials, mainly retail specials, as this was what they answered. 70% of those 5,500 people said they choose retail specials as the first option for making their money go further. And this one alarmed me, Stephen. Given a choice as to where to stretch money, men are twice as likely to choose online betting over finding restaurant deals or retail deals. Yeah, worse still, those taking home less than 5,000 a month are 4 times more likely to choose online betting over any other way of finding more ways to get through the month. Online gambling most prevalent at the lowest income levels, which indicates, says Just Money, that some view gambling as a potential source of income. So it's not entertainment. It's not having a little, let's touch them a chance kind of thing. These are people who are thinking, this is my chance to get through the month, which should worry most of us. Those of us who swipe our cards and doing Apple Pay and whatever and many people not ever having cash, but cash does remain king in this country, as you will know. It's the dominant form of payment for transport and small everyday purchases.
Sure. And then if you look at at sort of savings, are people actually able to save at all?
Very, very few. So the sage advice is that you should be saving at least 10% of your take-home earnings, but very, very few people in that survey were able to do it. Most of them just trapped in a cycle of borrowing just to get through the month. Only 9% of respondents are managing to do that 10%, putting away 10%. 42%, on the other hand, need to borrow money by the end of the month. 41% don't have a retirement annuity. 56% of those who do have withdrawn money in the past year. And the ability, whether you can save or not, is obviously directly dependent on the number of people supported. So as I said earlier, those that are supporting 4 or more people have only a 6% likelihood of saving properly. And only 16% can cover a 10,000 rand emergency. That's like a problem with your car or, a medical thing. Only 16% could actually cover it because they have that 10K available. Yeah.
And then talk to me about scams. We hear so much more about scams recently.
Yeah, half the respondents have been scammed. And actually, from where I sit, I'm surprised it wasn't more. But half is pretty bad. And they've actually been not approached. They've actually fallen for a scam. The biggest threat is social media, 25%. And scammers are deliberately targeting older people who are more trusting, and they're losing a lot of money that they can't regain. Men are twice as likely than women to have invested in cryptocurrency, 16% versus 8%. I also thought that was fairly interesting. Yeah.
And then financial literacy. We talk about money. People talk about money. There's a lot of information out there. But are people actually understanding? Financial literacy is a thing. It's difficult.
It is a thing, but just people sort of not looking for basic information. So when considering a loan, most respondents were aware they would look at the interest rate and the repayment terms over how many months do I have to pay what kind of thing, but they're not looking at the cost of credit insurance. And men are 12% more likely, apparently, to check the terms and conditions than women. But I would say if they're obviously answering a survey from where I sit, they might check, but very, very few are actually going through every word, and that's how they get caught, unfortunately.
Wendy Nola, very sobering. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Your Consumer Ninja, very, very sobering. And just a reminder, you've got to check and make absolutely certain you know what you're talking about and what you're understanding when it comes to financial products.
Coming up,
The Aubrey Masango Show
on 702
and Cape Talk.
I don't recognize that cap. Is that a new cap?
I got a cap for every day and every minute. And
then why do you wear the same one most days?
Because I'm seeing you every day. Steve, how's it, man?
All right, man. How are you doing? What's
Great
coming up?
Stuff. So in the first hour, we talked to Dr. Frank Magwegwe, head of financial wellness and at Nedbank and Gibbs faculty member. We're talking about the lessons we learn from our financial mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
School fees.
School fees, the Geda fees, as it is sometimes known. And then, of course, in the second hour, we entertain the weird and the wonderful. Now, we talked last week with Professor Lerotodi Leo about various comets that are said to be coming to our galaxy, to our solar system. And it was a very interesting scientific conversation. Tonight, we go into the spiritual, into the superstitious about that very issue. And we're going to be speaking to somebody by the name of Supreme Master Commander Sidumedi Suleiman Ashley Moloto. And then in the third hour of the show, we speak to Stanley Beckett, author and consultant on Change Creator SA. And we're talking very much about what you and Wendy were talking about right now, about How do we find other opportunities in this very, very
in Cyril's economy?
Absolutely. And then, of course, the final hour of the show is an open line, and that's the show tonight.
Aubrey, thank you very much indeed. The Master Commander, he himself will be on your radio in around half an hour from now. Don't forget your shapeshifter tonight. And dear Magadagela, the CEO and co-founder at Everelectric, really looking forward to that conversation due to start in just a few minutes. 8:30, Maki Malapo, good evening. The Gauteng Education Department, they can't pay some of the nutrition program providers.
Well, Stephen, the Gauteng Education Department has attributed the delayed payment of some service providers for its nutrition program to financial challenges. Good evening. The Extended National Schools Nutrition Programs is a provincially funded program that covers fee-paying quintile 4 and 5 schools. It's different to the NSP, which is funded by national government and only covers no fee-paying schools in the quintile 1 to 3 schools. During a media briefing in Johannesburg today, Education MEC Matume Chilwane outlined the nationally funded program remains operational.
This provisionally funded program ensures that identified learners in quintile 4 and 5 schools, particularly those from disadvantaged communities neighboring the schools, also receive daily nutritious meals. This step was necessary to uphold the department's commitment to equity and learner well-being. We remain committed to clearing all outstanding payments and ensuring that service providers are supported to continue their vital work.
The global healthcare group Haleon says it plans to triple its investment into its Cape Town manufacturing facility in a bid to drive the local production of pharmaceutical goods. The world's largest self-care company has announced a 750 million rand boost for the facility over 3 years. Haleon hosted a B20 policy roundtable in Sandton today on ways to build local manufacturing capacity and supply chains to enhance access and affordability of healthcare products. The company's executives have also called on the public sector to come on board. The Health Department's Deputy Director General, Rampelani Morewane, says there is room for collaboration.
By investing in domestic production of essential medicines and medical products such as vaccines, we are able to reduce dependency and strengthen supply chain resilience and also create job freedom.
The Western Cape Safer festive season operations are in motion with gender-based violence, extortion and road safety identified as some of the focus areas. The operations launched in Khayelitsha today will run until January next year. Khayelitsha is one of the areas with a high crime rate, including murder and extortion. The police top brass say high-density operations and police visibility will be heightened during this festive season. And Tutuzelo Nene was at the launch.
Deputy National Police Commissioner Tebelo Mosikidi has given Western Cape Police strict instructions to ensure the safety of residents and visitors as the summer holidays approaches. Officers will be deployed to crack down on violent crimes including extortion, kidnapping, robberies and gender-based violence. Mosigidi says they are more than ready to police the streets of the Western Cape this holiday season.
I must say it's not only in the Western Cape, that is why you see us here today. We have 4 hotspots provinces in the country that we're focusing on.
Mosigidi is also urging residents to work together with the police. Ndutuzelo Nene, Eyewitness News in Khayelitsha.
And in the U.S., Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the 2-week-old federal government shutdown is costing the U.S. economy about $15 billion a day in lost output, putting an estimate on its economic toll and urging Democrats to be heroes and side with Republicans to end it. Bessent told a news conference on the sidelines of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank annual meetings in Washington today that the shutdown was starting to cut into the muscle of the U.S. economy. He says the wave of investment into the U.S. economy, including into artificial intelligence, is sustainable and is only getting started, but the federal government shutdown is increasingly an impediment. He said that incentives in the Republican tax law and Trump's tariffs would keep the investment boom going and fuel continued growth. A look at your weather. Clear skies in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows between 12 and 15 degrees and peak at highs between 28 and 30 degrees. A partly cloudy start for Cape Town. Otherwise, it's clear skies with strong southeasterly winds tomorrow at a low of 13 and a high of 21 degrees. The Gauteng Education Department has attributed the delayed payment of some service providers for its nutrition program to financial challenges.
To celebrate 25 years of helping you live the Premier life, FNB Premier is giving you a chance to win a 14-day European tour experience and other cool monthly prizes. Open any FNB Premier account from September to 31 December 2025. Switch your salary, swipe or tap a minimum of 2,000 Rand per month for 3 months straight. Spend and win with FNB Premier. FNB, help changes everything. TCs and competition rules apply. FNB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized financial services and credit provider.
At Chamberlain, we're cementing our position as the home of unbeatable value. From the 20th to the 26th of October, get a 50-kilogram bag of Chamber Value 32.5 cement for just R76.90. That's right, only R76.90. Available at all 9 stores throughout Gauteng for collection before noon on the 26th. Come on down and lock in the lowest price in town. Concrete proof that quality doesn't have to crack the budget. Chamberlain, famous for hardware since 1903.
LLB graduates can fast-track their legal career with the Law Society of South Africa's PVT School for Legal Practice. LPC accredited, this 4-month practice-ready course, which is taught by practicing lawyers, can reduce your PVT contract by 12 months for admission. Study by day, after hours, or via distance at campuses nationwide. The first 2026 intake runs from January to April. Applications close 31 October 2025. Apply now at lssalead.org.za. That's lssalead.org.za.
The Money Show.
Shapeshifters.
25 minutes now to 8 the time. So I don't know if you've noticed from time to time in certain urban areas, you'll see a delivery vehicle and it'll be for a big brand like Woolies. And they're running around and dropping things off. And it's powered by electricity. The hint is it's a sort of wine rather than a raw, and it doesn't smell. It's quite a big change to what we're used to. And it turns out, in fact, those vehicles are supplied not as vehicles, but as a service from a company. That company is called Electric, and its CEO and co-founder, Ndia Magadagela, is your shapeshifter tonight. Ndia, good evening. Thanks so much for coming in tonight. I really appreciate it.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me.
Your company provides this service to other companies. How does it work?
So we provide electric vehicles as a service. We provide the vehicle, the charging infrastructure. So basically, we've set up a business model to take the headache out of the transition for logistics clients. If they want to go from internal combustion engines to electric, there are a lot of questions that they ask themselves. Firstly, this vehicle is obviously 40% more expensive. Where am I going to charge? What am I going to do at the end of life of this vehicle? How am I going to make sure that the charger I'm going to has power? So we take care of all of that so that they can still do their business without an interruption.
How do you make sure they always have power?
So with lots and lots of experience, 5 years of experience, but having built a connected back end where we are live in our vehicles, in our chargers. We know when load shedding will be, if, in the times of load shedding. But most of all, mostly we charge off solar. We've got an abundance of sun. But in the instance where we're not charging off solar and we're charging off the grid, then we manage for that, yeah.
Okay, so this is a strange question, where do the cars sleep at night? In other words, are they coming back to your premises or are they staying wherever the distribution centers are?
So Stephen is our client. He's got 10 vehicles. We will put down charging infrastructure at his premises. The vehicles will literally sleep at his premises. He will charge there, and we will just make sure that in the back end we connect it to the chargers. We ensure that overnight those vehicles are charging. If they're not charging, we will either start the charging remotely, or we will call someone and say vehicle number 6 has not been connected to the charger. So that is our headache to take care of, and not the clients.
Okay, so vehicle number 6, a particularly naughty vehicle,
yes,
doesn't like to go to sleep at night. Do you know where it is at all times? I mean, do you have that kind of control over it?
On my phone right now, I know where all the vehicles are. Hopefully they're all where they sleep because it is late at night. But at any given time, we do know where they are. We are able to even geolocate vehicles and say, in this area, you can only travel at 50 kilometers an hour. So that's a good thing about electric vehicles. It's all that technology that is in the vehicle, and all we need to do is to connect to the vehicle, and we can do so much more. We can stop vehicles remotely. We don't do that. We're not necessarily allowed to do that, but it is a functionality that we can do.
Okay, but you're not driving them. It is it's Stephen's drivers who are driving them.
Stephen's drivers are driving these vehicles. So we will provide the vehicle, the charging infrastructure, all of it, and Stephen will get his drivers there. We will train the drivers. We will be connected to their cell phones so that we tell them, driver of vehicle number 6, you are too far from home. Your next charger is further than, you won't get home in this amount of charge. Therefore, we are sending you to another charge provider's charger. So we do all of that in the back end.
What happens if Stephen's a very bad driver?
We will know. So we know harsh cornering. We know all of it. The interesting thing, I suppose, also about electric vehicles is that you're able to throttle the vehicle. So most of our delivery vehicles, we've only given them like 60% of power because initially, and I was saying we've got lots of experience in this now after 5 years, but we learned that the tires were actually getting worn off quicker because these vehicles have so much torque, and so we can throttle the vehicle so that they have less power.
It's a thing you don't know about. I mean, I've driven an electric car precisely once, and the torque is amazing.
Yeah, the torque is amazing.
Okay, so when you started, and let's just talk about that a bit. It's actually people you met first while you were studying.
Yes. So while I was studying at the University of Pretoria, I met my current business partner, one of them, Paul Plummer, and we were both doing accounting sciences at UP. We actually all did articles at Deloitte together, and that's actually where we met Wesley, our other business partner. So I've known these gentlemen for more than 20 years now.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
How did you go from articles to doing a business together?
So I finish articles at Deloitte. I go to the IDC just next door here. I'm there for 7 years. And then I go to Momentum to do some in corporate. But Wesley leaves Deloitte and is working with Freedom of Movement. The original Black Soap was invested there. So he's working there, kind of doing business development and running that business. And Paul is at Deloitte. He stayed at Deloitte in the consulting unit. And one day, every now and again, we would have coffee. And as we were talking, Paul and I say, one day we will start a business. But we don't quite know what it is yet at that point. And so it was in 2018 when we met again. And Wesley said, have you seen what's happening, worldwide with electric mobility? And I think that was when our eyes kind of popped and said, let's start looking into this idea and what it would look like for South Africa.
So you've got nice, you've got nice productive jobs in corporate, right?
Yes. And they like us at our jobs, hopefully.
Yes. Well, and you decide to take what's quite a big risk on what at the time was very new technology.
Correct.
In a country in which we were a little bit skeptical of new things. That must have been quite a risk. You have a family. You have, responsibilities.
No, for sure. Yes, I was having a great time as a chartered accountant, going into senior management, like really just...
Having a great time as a chartered accountant, I'm going to keep that phrase.
Said no chartered accountant ever. But we had comfortable jobs. But I think if you've got this entrepreneurship bone in you, there'll always be something that's niggling that says you should be something else. And I always had that throughout my career. I ran all sorts of other businesses on the side throughout my career. At some point, I was selling bags and shoes. At some point, I had an events company. And so there was always kind of, an interest in business. But I think what really said it was time to leave, I don't know. I think I was 35 at that time when I first thought. At 35, I think a lot of people have this, what am I going to do for the rest of my life kind of thing. And I thought, if I wait too late, I might never do this. My family is growing. My youngest child was starting grade 1 in that year. And I thought, let me try it for 5 years. Let's see how it goes. And, it's been almost 7 years, and I
Sure.
haven't gone back. Yeah.
I think you're right about that 35 to 45. People
Yeah.
say, am I going to die in this job?
Yes, yeah.
Let's just go back even before university, because a lot of people, almost every single person who's been sitting in the chair you're in now, when I speak to them about a business they've started, there's someone in the family.
Yes.
You know, not always a parent,
Yeah.
often an aunt, often a grandfather. Those would be the two, aunts and grandfathers. Was there someone in your family?
So in my case, it was my parents, actually.
Both
It was
of
my
them?
mom and dad, yes. So the story goes before I was born, apparently.
Don't tell us the truth, tell us the story.
So apparently, just before I was born, my dad thought, okay, he must start a retail business in a village called Amashamba back in Venda. And he was a health inspector at the time, and my mom was a nurse. And my mom tells the story about how she said she will leave her job first and go run this business, and my dad would join later. So actually, our formative years, I'm one of 5 children, were manning the till or delivering foodstuffs in the village, in the early 90s. And that's where it came from, really, that entrepreneurial family where you kind of see it firsthand what it meant. It meant you worked on Christmas Day, you never wore nice clothes like other kids at that time, because that was the busiest time. But it taught us something about work and building something.
There's a sense of a family hustling together.
Correct, yeah.
And your memories of growing up in a village like that, then coming to the sort of big smoke in Johannesburg, it's a transition. I mean, I don't know where it happened. Was it after school? Was it before that?
It was before that. It was during high school. So I was in boarding school, and I was in boarding school in Hammanskraal at a school called Prestige College. And kind of 95, 96, we are in Makado in Luitrecht at the time.
The country's changing dramatically.
The country's changing, and my parents are like, what sort of opportunities can we position for these children who now, can have access to what they never had access to? And so they ship us all to boarding school.
Sure.
My siblings were older at the time, but we all went to boarding school. So we ended up, my sister just before me and I ended up in a boarding school in Hammanskraal. So it's a different place. It's a different language. It's mostly Setswana spoken there, and English also. And I'm 12 years old, kind of arriving there. And I think what that taught me, just being away from the cushion of home, was independence and actually social skills to I can stay with anybody, I can converse with anybody. And then after that, going to the University of Pretoria and living in Sunnyside, it doesn't get better than that. And just sort of learning to enterprise, sell what you can, and, you're on your own now, you have to study and all of that. But the foundation of growing up in the village and having kind of the best of both worlds, meaning the village and, the urban experience, I think has really built a lot of who I am today. Just, I can rough it, and I can do all of it. Yeah.
I'm always interested in people who can, I don't want to say sort of both sides, but who can move from one part of our society to another.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that you're one of those people. But I'm also thinking in my head, you have this family who, because of where we were at the time, the father could be a health inspector, the mother could be a nurse. Now they have a daughter who's a chartered accountant. And I don't know if they're still with us. If you phoned them and said, I'm not going to be a chartered accountant anymore, I'm going to go and play with electric cars. I mean, if I had been your father, I would probably have said, we put so much time and effort into making you a chartered accountant. Yeah. I feel a bit for your dad right now.
Exactly. So my dad passed away when I was kind of in articles, so he didn't get to hear the crazy story. But I think he would have supported it, because he was, I see so much of myself in him, having left what was a cushy job. But I remember the day I phoned my mom to say, actually, I think I'm going to resign. And she was just like, to do what exactly? And I think if you, my 82-year-old mother, if you asked her today exactly what I do, she'd just be like, okay, she rents out cars and they're silent. Like, I don't think she really understands the length and the breadth of what we do, but very supportive all the same. And I remember she said, follow your heart, but should it be that it doesn't work out, we educated you, so you've got something to fall back on.
And isn't that the most powerful thing parents do? We're speaking to Ndia Magadagela, your shapeshifter tonight, the CEO and co-founder at Everlectric. It's 11 minutes now to 8 o'clock.
Zahira was tired. So tired, she let her eyes rest a bit. It was bad. So bad. She replaced 4 hours of spreadsheets with... It was bad. So bad. Too bad she didn't have Yoko Counter. It automatically recon sales, tracks stock, and staff performance. So good. Yoko Counter. Super simple POS and payments in one. No contracts, no hidden costs.
Ready to sell your vehicle? We Buy Cars goes above and beyond to make it simple, quick, and rewarding. Sell your car, bike, boat, or buggy for a great price with instant payment. Trading in or buying next, explore over 12,000 vehicles. Plus, get flexible finance and cover options at webuycars.co.za or at any branch. We Buy Cars, the best way to buy or sell.
Your office is more than just a place to work. It's a reflection of your success. At Desk and Chair, we help you elevate your workspace with locally manufactured desks and a wide range of chairs to suit your style and budget. Our expert consultants are with you every step of the way, from planning to delivery and assembly. Visit our showroom in Midrand or shop online at deskandchair.co.za. Desk and Chair. Think, feel, work better.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
The Money Show.
Shapeshifters.
Ndia Magadagela is the CEO and co-founder at Everlectric, and she's with us for another 10 minutes or so. Ndia, you decide to start a business. You've had some experience. You're a chartered accountant. You've got 2 people you know very well. You've got their own experience. You know that the world is changing. But now you made the point that electric cars, I think, 40% more expensive. The capital is on you. Yes. You have to get the capital. You have to buy the cars, and then you have to say to Woolworths or wherever they're your sort of anchor client, I suppose, and you will get the money back over time. But how on earth did you raise the capital?
It was a long story of blood, sweat, and tears. But you're very right. And add to that, it's a completely new technology. South Africa is not Silicon Valley. You know, it's not where you don't get a lot of venture capital, abundance of that, and sort of, you know.
We have a difficult relationship with electricity.
Exactly. Add that to the equation. So it was tough. We did knock on a lot of doors, and a lot of them, you know, didn't open for us. But finally, I think after 2 years of capital raising, after we put down our own pennies into the venture, very little pennies, considering what we needed, we did meet sort of a family office that then said, we will invest in this. And those were Sakumnoto Group Holdings. They're out in Houghton. That's where they're based. But they were the first ones to sort of say, we will bet on this business, to buy the first 5 vehicles that we actually took 2 to Woolworths, 2 to another client, and branded another one yellow and green so that we could be visible. But it was a tough fundraising journey, I won't lie. Ever since then, we've raised more capital. We've had Enreach invest in us, and then now recently we've had Vumela, Edge Growth, one of Edge Growth's funds, invest in us. But to get here was long and hard.
What was harder, getting the money or getting the first customer? Because you have to get one like at the same time as the other.
So we got the customer first, and then we said, hold that thought. We'll go find the money. Finding the customer was a little bit easier because we approached the customer that had made the point out there that they wanted to be known as green and sustainable. So it was almost like we were playing to their commitment, right? So it wasn't a walk in the park, but it was an easier conversation. We're bringing you something that solves your problem. But now you take the same value proposition and you take it to the bank, and the bank asks you very pertinent questions I used to ask others when I was a banker myself. Like, what is the residual value of this car? And I say, I do not know. And then the banker's eyes go to the back of their head, right? Or this car is 40% more expensive. You know, and how long do I have to wait? What's the payback period on this thing? So all those questions were they were not as easy to answer at the time. But then once we had our first 5 on the ground and we had the first commercialization with Woolworths, the discussions then became easier because we proved it. There's cost savings, but not only that, there's a reduction in carbon emissions, and then other clients started to come. But yeah, it was quite a tough journey.
So I'm going to ask you a question. This is the one that might get you into trouble, okay? So let me just give you that warning. And it's about government policy. So you've worked as a CA, you worked in corporate, you worked at the IDC next door. You've now started your own business, not your first one, but this is the business you're currently running with people. And the person sitting in your chair on Monday, when I asked her, she runs her own business too, what would be, the best way for government to help smaller business? And her answer, which I was not expecting, was basically to stop thinking like a sort of tuck shop and to actually, think big. Do you have any advice? I mean, would you be along those lines? Would you have other lines?
I agree. I think we need to be more risk takers when it comes to funding. I find that, and yes, you're right, it might get me into trouble, but I do find that small business, it's as if they're happy to keep you small.
Yeah.
And once you kind of think bigger, there's nothing for you. You just kind of
scaling up problem.
There's a scaling up problem. And also policy, like you're saying. I mean, the fact that electric vehicles are still 40% more expensive than internal combustion engines is really just not getting us there quick enough.
And that's a tariff, a lot of that. It's
It is a tariff, It's on a sliding scale. There's luxury taxes on it and all of that. So government policy, but also on the funding side, we need to be having more of these venture capital type structures where small business, where you can have an idea and you can soar knowing that you will be funded. But I don't think there's an abundance of that in the South African market.
The second question that always gets, it's quite a fun moment because we ask a CEO this question, they immediately go, and it's, what do you do for fun? And you're not allowed to say spending time with my family or jogging. You're allowed mountain cycling, you're allowed hiking, you're allowed other forms of exercise. You have to tell us what they are. Paragliding would be great. But you're not allowed to say jogging because everyone says, spending time with my family and jogging. So something you do for India, not for your son who's sitting next to you, for you.
I do lots of fun stuff. So I do enjoy cooking. Yes, so I love to cook for my family. As you said, I can't say I spend time.
No.
So I just
cooking's
cook
allowed. Yes.
So that's what I do for fun. I do like to run, but I don't know if I like it, but I do it because I have to do it. I always feel better, good.
Gets you through the day
afterwards. But I also love to read. So that's those are the things that I do for fun.
What do you like to read? I mean, I've gone in my life from hardly ever reading nonfiction, big science fiction guy, to suddenly finding, I'm reading a story now about, a nonfiction book about the creation of Bangladesh. I don't know how I even got there. What do you prefer to read? And please don't tell me the leadership section at Exclusive Books.
No, well, it's a combination. So right now I'm reading lots of biographies and autobiographies. So I was reading Nozipho Shabalala's book, which I finished in a day because it's really that good. I'm actually halfway through Muzi Skakane's book, Odyssey of Liberation. I've been reading Jeff Wicks's book because that's topical.
Yes.
But I read anything and everything. But I do read business books as well. Good to Great being one of my favorite books. Eric Ries, The Lean Startup, is almost like the Bible for startup business. So I read lots of things. I have a list of reads for the year, and if new things come out, then I shelf the list and I start buying what's topical.
You're more disciplined than I. I'm the journalist, you're the chartered accountant.
Yes.
You start the year with a list. Are there places that you have traveled to in Mzansi or somewhere else? Or places that sort of stay with you, that you think about, or places that you still want to go to?
Sure, there's lots of places. So there's lots of places I've traveled to in Mzansi. that have stayed with me. And I think it's more who I was there with rather than, the actual little dorpie itself. Last year with my family, we did we traveled to Cape Town by car. But
it's great to do that.
Yeah, so we went the garden route and we decided we'll stop in all the little towns that we wouldn't necessarily usually stop at. So that trip will forever be in my heart. Another place that I just love is Kenya. Mombasa, Diani. I'm going to Lamu later in the year. It has really stayed with me. Just African people, the fact that Swahili sounds like Venda, I just felt right at home. But there's still so much of the world that I would like to see. So I've got a bucket list and it is long. Yeah.
And dear, thank you so much for coming in. I hope number 6 car shapes up and stops misbehaving. Happy to give it a good talking to, but India, thank you for being our shape.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Mia Magadagela is the CEO and co-founder at Everelectric.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
Well, markets in the US turning mixed now. They did start positive, but the Dow Jones is down 0.12. The Nasdaq is up 0.11, and the S&P is down 0.03%. Of course, gold still doing incredibly strongly. Was past $4,200 for the first time earlier in the day, and really something that's never actually happened before. But we are starting to see, of course, the fact that people more and more are beginning to price in gold, and we really are seeing a lot more money going in that direction. We, of course, will be back with you tomorrow. Aubrey is next. Thanks for being with us on The Money Show. Good evening. It's 8 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Maki Malapo. Amid several probes into police corruption, Parliament's Police Committee has criticised Acting Police Minister Firas Kachali and National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola for failing to appear before it. The committee says their failure to attend today's meeting undermines accountability, especially considering the serious allegations currently facing the police. Kachali and Masemola were expected to appear before the committee today. Undermines accountability, especially considering the serious allegations currently facing the police. Kachali and Masemola were expected to appear before the committee today to assess the South African Police Service's annual report and financial statements. Committee chairperson Ian Cameron was forced to defer the meeting without any presentations from the various entities, including the Auditor General. He says Kachali cannot use a cabinet meeting as an excuse not to attend.
We do not answer to cabinet, so I don't care if cabinet is in the time of the committee. This committee has asked several times to change programming. That hasn't happened. SAPS is in crisis at the moment, but the minister chooses to go to cabinet this morning. Nothing can trump, no cabinet meeting can trump what is being discussed here today.
The Cape Peninsula University of Technology says a task team has been created to reach an agreement with students related to concerns about potential adjustments to university fees. The EFF Student Command has threatened to protest at CPUT after raising concerns about the institution's proposed registration fees for tuition next year. Earlier today, a group of EFF Student Command supporters halted shuttle services at CPUT's Cape Town campus for 2 hours before moving to CPUT's Bellville campus, where a memorandum was handed over. Carlo Peterson reports.
CPUT management says a task team is discussing its potential adjustments to university fees as part of an ongoing process with students until an agreement is reached. The formation of the task team follows a meeting with the Student Representative Council this week, where CPUT management presented a proposed financial control plan to curb institutional debt. The proposed plan includes introducing an application fee, increased tuition and residence fees, and the reintroduction of a minimal initial tuition fee payment of R3,500. CPUT spokesperson Lauren Kansley says there are no approved plans to make any adjustments to the financial model of the institution.
Management have transparently communicated to all staff and students twice that any decisions which may be taken regarding changes to financial processes must be agreed to by a multitude of stakeholders, and ultimately our highest decision-making body, the CPUT Council, has final sign-off.
Kansley says these matters are discussed during consultative processes and no final decision has yet been made. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News.
Please Please note the following story contains disturbing details. A distraught Joburg mother says all 3 of her sons have allegedly been molested by a former St. John's Preparatory School teacher who's facing a slew of sexual assault charges. The 52-year-old appeared before the Johannesburg High Court today for a pre-trial. He faces 25 charges in total for sexual assault, grooming and child abuse. The woman, whose children are alleged victims of the former teacher, says the violations on her son happened between 2005 and 2013. The siblings are among a dozen other boys who have laid similar charges against the 52-year-old. Jabuli Lembata has more.
The mother of 3 says the alleged sexual assault of her children began when they were aged 5, 9 and 12 respectively. She says it was only in 2021, when her eldest son turned 24, that he reported the sexual allegations. She says her son revealed that the teacher molested him at a camp in the northwest. The confession led to more victims speaking out about incidents happening at various locations during school outings.
So it was rock climbing, water polo, and then also hockey incidents and pastoral care. So we trusted him with our children, given that was his role at the school.
The 52-year-old man was arrested in 2021 and released on 10,000 rand bail. His cases from other provinces are being consolidated ahead of a trial in the Johannesburg High Court. Jabuli Limbata, Eyewitness News, Johannesburg High Court.
And today marks 40 years since the Trojan Horse Massacre. On this day in 1985, groups of young people gathered in Thornton Road in Athlone in Cape Town to stage anti-government protests. But the protest was disrupted when a group of police officers who were hiding behind crates on the back of a truck jumped out and opened fire on them. The officers waited until the truck reached the middle of the road before they fired. UWC research professor Pramesh Lalu explains students were enraged by the education system which they felt kept them trapped in the system of apartheid.
So the first thing is that this movement of students in 1985, and I've insisted that we call it a movement of students rather than a school's boycott, which I think is a misnaming of what was unfolding, was an argument and a fight against gutter education.
Lalu adds the protests were not just against education.
In that moment in 85, young people understood that they were being dragooned into the factories of this country without any possibility of a life of education, a life of thought, a life of culture. And so young people in that period were largely forced into a predicament of an impasse.
Gold's trading at $4,199.59 an ounce. The rand's at 17.35 to the dollar, at 23.21 to the pound, at 20.18 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $61.99 a barrel. A look at your weather. A fine Thursday in store for Gauteng. Tomorrow, Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 12 degrees and peak at highs of 28. Pretoria is at 17 and 31. Vereeniging at 15, reaching highs of 30 degrees. A partly cloudy start for Cape Town. Otherwise, it's clear skies with strong southeasterly winds at a low of 13 and a high of 21 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. Amid several probes into police corruption, Parliament's Police Committee has criticised Acting Police Minister Feroz Kochalia and National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola for failing to appear before it.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.